I think it's time we talked about one of the most basic and fundamental stories of mankind.
Let's do it.
So, new cycle, new beginning of the Torah, and we actually also have a few other milestones to celebrate here on our channel. First of all, this is the 100th video of our channel, and second of all, we are just passing the 200 subscribers for our channel. So, if you enjoy these videos, feel free to share them, to comment, to like them, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please help us grow the channel and subscribe. Now, this week, I want to discuss and dive deep into the story of Adam and Chava, or actually the beginning of that story, where the Nachash approaches Chava and makes them eat from Etzadat, because when you look at the story in the pshat level of the psukim, there's this one word that repeats itself again and again, seems to be in different meanings or not in different meanings, but it's really hard to translate that word into a different language because in Hebrew it has different meanings. And the word is arum, or the shoresh of aram, ayin resh mem, where in the beginning we find Adam and Chava arumim, which some might translate it into naked, but again, if you look at the pasuk right after it, the Nachash was arum mikol chayat hasadeh. He was more naked than all the other animals. That doesn't make sense on the pshat level. And also later on, when you look at Adam and Chava, they cover themselves up with fig leaves with a leitena, and then he goes and hides in the tree that he ate from, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, why are you hiding? And he says, because I'm naked. Well, he just covered himself up with leaves, so why is he afraid of being naked? He's not naked anymore. And then also at the end, where they are arumim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes for them a set of clothes out of leather. So what I want us to do is try to understand and explain the story on the pshat level, on the most basic level of what exactly is going on over here. What does it mean? What happened to Adam and Chava? What did they do with Etzadat? What changed in their life? What changed in the world right after they ate from Etzadat?
It's very interesting. And actually, in general, what is this Etzadat? It's some magical fruit. Kadosh Baruch Hu put some magical fruit there that they shouldn't eat. And if they eat, they become smart. And if they don't, then why did he put it there? What's the story here? And what's really going on? And I think if we understand Etzadat, it'll also help us understand, the arumim of before and the arumim of after. And it's interesting because the name Etzadat shows up at the beginning, but then after they eat from it, that name sort of is forgotten, and it's called Hamin Ha'etz Asher Tziviticha Levinti Achol Mimenu Achal. That very long name for a tree. But basically, what the tree is the tree that I commanded you not to eat from. If you think of it, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, eat from everything, but just this one tree, don't eat from it. And therefore, what defines the tree is the fact that they're not supposed to eat from it, is the fact that they were commanded not to eat from it. And eating from Etzadat is eating from that tree that they were not supposed to. But when you think about it, it's interesting because what defines man, what separates him from the rest of the creatures, is the concept of bchira chofshit, of free choice. So maybe this tree is the tree of free choice. Maybe these fruit aren't magical fruits. What's special about this tree is that it's dat tov bara. It's the only choice they had. Think about it. They were created. They were told to do. There was no good or bad yet. There was nothing that they were not supposed to do. There was one thing that they were not supposed to do, and this was their only choice. This tree, in a certain sense, defined them as humans of choosing either good, either listening, or not listening. So maybe what's actually happening is something a little different than that simple story. Maybe what the Torah is saying is, at the beginning, they were arumim, and again, there's various ways of explaining that arumim. Veloit boshash. They're not embarrassed. They weren't embarrassed. Now, why is someone embarrassed? Someone is embarrassed because, there's someone else looking at him, and he's doing one thing, and the other person's doing another thing. As long as creation is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created what he created, everything in creation is just following HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation, is just doing what they're told, is just doing what they were created for. That's this simple assumption in the world. There's no choice yet. There's no doing different. Then there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. There are no two sides. To be embarrassed, there has to be a me and there has to be a you, and I'm doing one thing and you're doing something else, or you're expecting from me something else, and then I'm embarrassed by what I'm doing. But as long as there aren't those two sides, there's no room for embarrassment. There's no such thing as being embarrassed. Embarrassed of what? But maybe that's the turning point. Maybe that's why this is such a critical thing, because when they eat from that fruit, it's not about this magic that suddenly they had that. It's about the fact that suddenly they recognize themselves as separate entities from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kiviyachol. They're their own thing. They can do their own thing. Until now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said there should be light and there was light. There should be man and there was man. He created man to do one thing, the animals to do another thing, and that's just how everything was. And suddenly the person recognizes, I have choice. I can actually do against what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has asked for me. And now suddenly there's two entities. Now, right after, he's embarrassed. He hears HaKadosh Baruch Hu he recognizes that he is what to be embarrassed about. And maybe that's the story here. Etz hada'at, tov v'ra. In this case, they chose bad. But choosing bad is what made them suddenly recognize their ability to choose. They messed up this time. But actually, this is the beginning of their ability to recognize that they have that they have the ability to look at the situation, to follow or not follow, to do right, to do wrong. Yes, they have what to be embarrassed about. Yes, sometimes they need to cover up their wrongs and try to improve and try to do better. But the moment of creation of Adam is still not the full moment of Adam recognizing, as the pasuk says, they woke up, they recognized suddenly their potential, what they could be for the bad and for the good. The Nachash says that you'll be Elohim Yodei Tovara, because to the rest of creation, there is no choice. They are what they are, their instincts, and only HaKadosh Baruch Hu has choice. But here suddenly there's another creation that only when they do wrong do they suddenly recognize that they have that choice, that they're at a certain level like God in their ability to choose, and their ability to not just automatically be what God created them for, but actually to choose that from different options. You know, it's like a 2-year-old or a teenager. To grow up, to be their own person, they have to sort of step out of their parents. And how do they do that? Well, they first do that by doing wrong, by fighting with their parents, by doing the opposite of what they should do. But that sort of helps them recognize, that they're their own being and that they can also choose not only the wrong choice, but also the right choice.
Yes, it's exactly what you're saying. The idea here behind Etz hada'at is that Adam and Chava suddenly realized the power they have in their hands to make a decision. Up until then, like you were saying, it was all about doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded them to do, following what they've been told. And suddenly Adam realizes, hold on a second, I can make a decision. I can decide if to do or not to do, or if to do something I was obeyed not to do. And with great power comes great responsibility. And when you look at the psukim right after the chet, it seems to be what exactly Adam is suddenly comprehending, that suddenly he has this great responsibility as HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks for him and he goes and he hides. But again, where does he hide? He hides in his crime scene. He hides in the tree that he just ate from. That doesn't make sense. Why does he go there? But that's exactly, he's trying to grasp the situation. He's trying to understand what just happened to him. What's going on over here? How did I go against what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me to do? And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, where are you? And Adam replies, I heard your voice, so I hid. Ki erom anochi. Adam doesn't say that he ate from the tree, because that's not the point. Like you were saying, this is not a magical fruit that suddenly once they took a bite of it, the whole world changed. Or like Disney and others try to make us think it's an apple, a magical apple that you bite and suddenly magic happens. Even if we go on Rashi's route, this was a simple fig tree that they ate from. It was a simple fig. It's not about the fruit, it's about the actual eating that they did. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said not to eat, and they ate. And Adam HaRishon knows that suddenly he went against HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice, against what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him. And this is what he's scared from. This is what bothers him. This is what he's afraid from. And also, this is what suddenly Adam and Chava realized, that they have this power to make a decision. They have this power if yes to listen and not to listen. And this is the new thing that suddenly happens in the world, where they are arumim, but again, not naked, but arumim in the concept of, we have from halacha of harama, of being able to go one way but say the other way, or wanting to get to B but actually going to A. You seem to be going left, but you're actually going right. And the other side of this harama, again, is this concept of da'at. Like we know in halacha, you have to have da'at in order to do so many things. You can't get married if you don't have da'at. You can't buy things if you don't have da'at. This whole concept of da'at is what's needed in order to be a mature man in this world. Without this da'at, without this understanding of the responsibility, of the power you have, you can't do things in the world. And this is what is happening over here. This is this new aspect that has suddenly been introduced into the world, where Adam and Chava realize that they have the power to listen or not. And again, when you look at the psukim after the chet, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Adam, did you eat from that tree that you were not supposed to eat from, like you were saying? And Adam says, it's the women that you gave me. It's not him throwing responsibility to Isha. It's not him trying to say, oh, it's not my fault. It's him saying, I am a listener. I do what I'm being told. You told me to live in this world, and that's what I do. You gave me Isha, and she gave me the fruit, and I just ate. I didn't realize I have the ability to choose. I didn't realize I have the ability to make a decision. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu really turns to the Isha and says, Mazot asit. And the Isha says, Hanachash hishiani v'ochal. Hishiani is a very interesting word, because it sounds like the word hisiani. It's the same letters as he raised me. He picked me up to the place where I ate, meaning to say, it's not that he convinced me me or not that he told me and I listened to him. He took me to this place where I suddenly realized I have the ability to make this decision. I have the ability to think and decide yes or no. And again, when you look at Adam and Chava, like you were saying, it's not only that their eyes opened up, because just before that, Chava already saw the fruit and she already had a ta'ava for it, ta'ava ulainaim. So after the vatipakachna is again in Hebrew from the same shoresh pikach of wisdom, of being smart, of actually thinking about things. That's what happened to them after their chet, that they suddenly opened their eyes and they realized this great power that they have in their hands to make a decision. And when you look at the whole story in that way of understanding the pshat level, there are many midrashim and many other stories that come out of this story. But on the pshat level, on the simple level, you can't ignore the sequence of the events and the use of these different words which are being played with each other. Like we mentioned, the different shorashim, the different basic words in Hebrew which are being used in different contexts to express different ideas. This is what seems to be going on over here, this realization that they have the power to make a decision. And when you think about today's day and age, with all the information around us, like we've discussed many times, the information age where we have so much information and suddenly so many people think that they should make a decision based on the information around them because they've become experts, because they understand everything around them, because I saw this video on Facebook for an hour about this thing, how bad it can be for you, so I decided not to do it. And we suddenly realize how much power we have in our hands and how much impact we have in our hands to the decisions that we make, to the things that we do, because it is a great responsibility to make your own decisions. And again, like we've discussed this many times, sometimes people have a hard time to making decisions, but this is what makes us people. This is what makes us adults. This is what makes us mankind. The ability not to live only based on instincts, based on actions and reactions, but actually the ability to think about things, the ability to act based on logic, on reason, on decision. And maybe this is what this story is here to teach us, this great power that we have to make the decision, to decide to do the good, to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. And again, like in so many places in Yiddishkeit, from bar mitzvah to kinyanim to weddings to everything, it's always based on the decision that we have to make the good decision to go down the path HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to go.
You know, it's interesting because we're talking about the first sin, meaning this could be like the worst thing, right? Meaning it should be the worst thing, but the result is that is something which you're describing as something really important. Maybe this is, another important message here. Yes, it was a sin and it was a bad sin. It was the first sin. It was the first time to ever do something against God's will. And it had ramifications, and we were kicked out of Gan Eden and death and a lot of things. But at the same time, it's a moment of growth. Just like every time, every failure can be a moment of recognizing my ability, recognizing my power. A child follows what his parents do just because he's a child, just because he's a baby, that's what they're born. But then, as we said, when they grow up, when they mature and they go against their parents, they still have to do kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. They still are supposed to end up doing the right thing that their parents are trying to educate them to do. But because of their failure, they suddenly have to get there on themselves. They have to build up. They have to make that choice to do the right thing. And therefore, every failure, even that first failure, is actually the ground of new growth, is actually, in this case, the ground of growth of the entire world, of entire humanity, of everything from that day on we're supposed to do, is trying to do our part, is being brought into this world, having lack of clarity and having to make those right decisions and follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we decide to do the right thing, not just because this is what we were created to do.
Beautiful, wonderful. And I think really there's so much more to be discussed here, and so many, again, midrashim, mefarshim, the rishonim, arumim, so many different approaches to the story, obviously because this is the first story in the Torah. And really this is just the most basic level of the psukim, the most pshat level of the psukim, trying to understand the different words in the context, just to see how they work together. But we're out of time, so we're going to have to end here. So shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and we'll talk again in Mitzvah Hashem next week, Parashat Noach. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.